Hey, 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 hey! Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
How you doing, Luke? How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm terribly nervous. I'm shaking in my boots.
no, you're not.
I've been waiting weeks since we spoke. I mean, it's months you've kept me on the leash, waiting for this.
Well, hey,
I'm excited.
you're one of the ones we're trying to do on this sort of Friday chat show. As you know, you've already said off air, you watch the Wednesday night show, and you know a few people and so on. So once a month, every Friday, we're going to get in individuals from around the industry. That could be yourself with insurance, it could be DJI, it could be YouTube, whatever. So we're here to try and help out our community on asking questions direct to people that maybe they don't want to ask or do want to ask. So first and foremost, on behalf of the community here, thank you for taking the chance to come and talk to us. I really appreciate it. Now, I've got to start. Where the bloody hell are you?
Yeah, you're not where we thought you were going to be.
No. So right now I'm in Casablanca. So I'm currently halfway through the country riding my motorbike down from Spain to the south of Morocco.
Huh? What motorbike?
Yeah.
Because we have a few motorbike people.
Yes, 2001. So it's an old one. It's the Thumper single cylinder 650. It's good fun. It's good fun. It's falling apart bit by bit. My helmet visor's hanging off. So once you're on a long ride, you just kind of put up with things. But it is good fun. Just get up in the morning, get going again.
So next question will be to the community here is, are you a flyer? Do you have a drone? Do you get involved?
Yes, I do. Not as much as I'd like to. Like, for example, in Morocco, you can't bring a drone. So I spend a lot of my time, a lot of holidays here. So there's no drones. Usually if I go hiking or if I'm, out in Asia or something, I've taken it. But like I said to you guys, I do a lot of footage and then not really anything with it. So there's just a big bank of footage sitting there. I have a mini SE, which is unfortunately not been out probably for about a year now. But yeah, I started with the Phantom 3, I think, and had that for a long time. And then got the mini and took that out. But most of it's taking it up high, taking it around, taking a few pictures. I've not got anything too exciting yet.
So how good is your editing?
Well, apparently I can put it into CapCut
tell the truth.
And get an auto. So I haven't quite got there yet.
Yeah, it's probably better than my auditing.
I'm going to put an entry. You can hold me to this. Next time you do a newbie show, I
What?
promise
You
I will
took
at least take
my mouth.
Put it into CapCut or DJI Auto, and then we'll see what comes out of it. And I might put a few tweaks in there, but I've definitely got enough footage to put something out.
Well, we're going to hold that to you, okay? Yeah. So the next newbie night, we'll add you to you. Okay?
I will do it.
You're live. Everyone's heard you now, so you can't back down on that. All right. So
yeah, I promise, guys, and you can all hold it to it, and all email in to the work email box you guys have at the end. So if I've not done it, then I expect some hate. It's all right.
That's perfect. I'm also told you know Helga as well. How about that? How's that meet up?
Hang on, Helga is our hero.
Helga is our hero. Ladder.
Yeah. So actually, you guys met him. He said he had a ladder or something first.
Oh, wasn't there? Tony can tell you the story.
Yeah, one of our co-hosts who just left sadly, but we went to so it was an abbey anyway.
Yes, it's Waverley Abbey.
Waverley Abbey, yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's an arch.
Yeah, it's a popular flying spot. I know a few people that fly there.
Well, Dave tried to fly through the arch.
Yeah.
And he's ended up got a nickname of Poles and Holes because he crashed into poles and he crashed into holes. But Helga, we never met in our lives. He was down there showing another chap how to fly, and he was mesmerized by one of our Jackie's Avata 2, and he was mesmerized with that. And the next minute, Dave crashed the drone, but unfortunately the drone dropped on the roof. And
it's not flat bit up. I know. I always kids. So I know that there's a flat bit to climb up onto it, but it's not.
It's not easy to climb up, especially when you're nearly 60. But
and it's
Anyway, Helga turned up and he says, "Oh, my friend might be able to get a ladder. So he phoned his friend. Yeah, I got a ladder. So he went off. An hour later, he comes back up with a ladder. And me and Jackie both have footage of it. And mine's speeded up with Benny Hill music to it. And it's hilarious. And Jackie put one on the other day. But he's the nicest man, apart from John, but he's really nice man. So he is.
I think that's the first nice thing I've heard about you say about John on the show.
Yeah, I know.
Is this a different theme today? Because you got the insurance guy on. We're trying to go with a bit more of a serious tone, is it?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm sure it'll deteriorate later on throughout the evening. Anyway,
yeah, I'm sure. So I know Helder because he works with my mum at the hospital they work at. So Helder is an all-round legend and a hero for working in the hospital as well. But
yeah,
we've got drones and motorbikes in common with Helder.
No, he's a lovely guy.
We have Patrick in Belgium. He's into motorbikes and drones as well.
Yeah, I think the two really go hand in hand. Anybody that's traveling around and is riding around, you're going to go to some amazing places, and then you've got to get the drone up and take footage. I think the two go together.
Well, there you go. It's a product for you. Bike and drone insurance. Merge it together. There you are.
Yeah, I wish I could do motorbike insurance as well, but unfortunately, we've found a specialist.
Before we get into any serious questions, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh, you froze. Oh,
the dog's Casablanca Wi-Fi.
Have you seen the footage of the auditor getting his drone broke?
I haven't, but I have heard about it. I know it's all over the socials, and I hasten to say probably deserved it. But you guys can probably tell me a bit more.
No, we agree.
Yeah, we don't. He basically, this chap, we all know they go there. They know they got the rights. They got the CA because they've done all their work. They've done all their checks and everything. And 100%, well, that part of it, I totally. But the bit I don't agree with is when they go and wind the people up, is they know they can just crack on, do the flight, but it doesn't get them any clickbait. But basically, this lady was on the other side of the fence, and she was explaining to him, you're not doing it, you can't do it. So she doesn't understand the law. He does. He's winding her up. And basically, he holds the drone up and he says, I'm going to put it up now. And she just opened the gate and she grabbed a hold of the one of the arms was out and she just snapped it. And you see the drone flying across the courtyard, basically. And I'm not being funny. I think he deserved all he got. That's my opinion. Other people might not have the same opinion.
It's one of those things. 100%, everyone's going to watch it and think, "Good on her." Everyone would want to do the same, but unfortunately, and it's really sad because we talked to the CAA about the same issue with the auditors. They know they know the law to the letter, and they have so much knowledge, but then they're using it just for clickbait. And unfortunately, everyone watches it as well. It's still good footage.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. As a community, we can ignore them, but people are going to watch it, and it's such a frustrating thing.
And I'm guessing because they put it on YouTube, they make money out of it. It is classified as commercial. So when they come and claim with they have got commercial cover with you.
Well, this would be the thing. So, for example, something they might slip up on is say that because they weren't being paid for that piece of work, they would assume that they don't need to be covered under EC 785/2004. Rolls off the tongue too easily now.
Oh, that's what I've got.
It's awful.
That's on my paper here. That question. We've gone.
Yeah. So they would assume that they don't need that because they're not being paid at the time. But because that footage will end up at some point receiving some sort of money, even if you don't get paid, it could be classed as commercial work. In that case, it is commercial. I would hope maybe he's insured under a hobbyist policy that's not got EC 785/2004. He's doing some kind of commercial work and the claim would be rejected for that reason. But unfortunately, other than that, he could potentially make a claim and depending after a legal battle could potentially get it paid out as well.
Just a quick one for you, because whilst we're on this particular subject, it does to a certain degree talk about the commercial part of this, and not everyone can afford the commercial part of it. I know that you have, because I use you as my policy holder. I know that I can actually phone you and get cover for a day. But I also saw through the press over the last 2-3 months, certain insurance companies saying we no longer allow you to call us and just go from hobbyist to commercial. You either have either or. How do you underwrite that? Where does that fit in your policy? And is that an important part of what? I know we're not here to sell your products and services, but talk about why you would do that and the benefit to me to do that.
So, I mean, I don't know about that particular headline, but predominantly the difference between hobbyist and commercial, there is the EC 785 2004. Generally, commercial cover also has added features like you'll have like business continuity cover. So, for example, if you crash your car, some better insurances will give you maybe a courtesy car until it's repaired. Some insurance wouldn't cover you for that. If you had commercial van insurance and you're using your van every day for work, or your tools are stolen, you would expect to have your tools replaced the next day, or you could rent in the tools, or you could rent in a van. That kind of covers for commercial drones. On a hobbyist policy, if there was a claim, it might not include that. So that's part of the price element. The other thing is the activities that are undertaken. Somebody that's, doing surveying or maybe even remote space and space inspections with, I don't know if you know the Flyability Helios 3 drones, the caged drones that can be used.
I've seen them go down the drains.
Exactly.
Tight spaces.
When you're talking about commercial uses, that's all kind of one bundle, because it's where commercial work lends itself is to big film and TV, surveying. Whereas hobbyist, there's less time pressure. You're doing it for fun. You're out, you're relaxed on a Sunday afternoon or watching a sunset. There's many differences to being at work to being a hobbyist, and that's why there's a price difference. In terms of switching over for a day, I'm not sure about that. It might be because they don't believe, that you're going to go for one day to do commercial, but then the rest of the time you're flying as a hobbyist. We don't do daily policies for the same reason. I think I explained to you, Johnny, before when you called up, is the pay per fly model is a similar concept. If you're covered for one day and you're only flying that day and you pay a $5, let's say, for that day, that's already more expensive than it would have been across the year. Yeah. But the likelihood of a crash is the same as every other day. So you haven't got enough money going into the pot to be able to pay out on claims. If you buy it, we've seen people in the past, other insurers, they do these pay per fly models, they do these daily covers. And what happens is they don't have enough money to pay out on claims, and they're not there after a year or two.
Oh.
So that's the main reason for those daily covers that don't get put in place. The reason it works with car insurance, if you look at car insurance and try to get daily cover, it's going to be maybe £25 an hour almost, or £70 a day. But you can get car insurance for £500 a year, probably even cheaper. The reason is, but even with that, you've got so many more cars on the road. Everybody is driving a car. I imagine every single person here that is flying their drone, probably 80-90% also have a driving license and drive a car. But then everyone else is also driving cars. So there's just so much more money going into the pot to pay out for those claims that occur. And that's really our job. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah. Just going back to a point that I had a boat on the Hamble River, and I had quite a decent boat, and I went for the insurance company thinking, right, here we go, how much? And he goes, 140 quid. He goes, why is that? He said, well, the speeds you go at 4 knots, you've got half a week to change course or whatever. So how many times do you hear smash ups in the Hamble River every week? It's obviously it's about risk as well. I appreciate that. And obviously with drones, there's obviously risk. So how do you, I don't want to keep jumping across all the time on this, but it's key for me to understand this. But a lot of insurance policies are all based upon risk. Yeah. We'll talk about the DJ care in a minute. All right, the next question. But before that, just talk about how you work out your risk, and sometimes you offset it to Hong Kong and other parts of the world, that sort of thing. But how do you, as a company, look at your risk and price it that way?
Yeah, well, we'll go. I just want to say to Mickey reading the small print, I like that. because not everyone will. Just as a quick one, if you ever want to get through quick small print, put it through ChatGPT is the best way, just as a side thing. But yeah, I always try to use other examples, because really, when it comes to being an underwriter, there's science behind it when there's data. So there's certain elements that you can capture, but as we've talked about, there's not a central database of drones and drone crashes. So we have access to all of our claims data going back 10 years, and we can look at that. And then we have to look to the market. We speak to manufacturers. We look for common causes of claims, that kind of thing. But let's talk about the boat. So you have it's like a canal barge, I imagine. It's like a large, 30-foot boat, let's say.
Yeah.
It could be worth, I don't know how much. Let's say it's worth £100,000. It's a decent thing. You put all your life savings into it. It's a decent chunk of money. But when you look at it, it's going slowly along the river. You've been experienced as a sailor, and looking at the claims, there haven't been that many losses. But also, what kind of damage do you expect? It bumps off the side, and maybe you're going to get better paintwork damage. There's potentially, fire that could happen. And I'd put it on you guys. What other sort of things do you think could go wrong in your example of a boat? What are you foreseeing that could happen? Maybe it gets stolen. Can you think of anything else?
Oh yeah, no. So for the main one, or the main cause that I understand, is adverse weather. If, for example,
is that not called an act of God?
No, yeah, adverse weather covered.
But you still could claim on it. So whatever it's called. But I mean, for example, plus you've got access as well. So if you scratch your boat with a bit of paint, you ain't going to claim. You're going to paint it over.
Exactly. That's all part of it. So so you're looking at it, right? What could happen? Adverse weather. Right, a pretty big storm might cause a bit of damage, but it's not going to sink the whole thing.
No, the mast.
An active flood could occur. Lightning strikes it. It catches fire. Now that could be a claim. That's not an act of God automatically excluded. It really depends on the wording. The act of God is kind of a get out for something that couldn't have been foreseen, or something that would be made similarly to how things are classed as a miracle. You have no explanation for how you could see what happens. That would be an act of God. Lightning, for example, in Singapore is actually quite a serious risk. There's higher risk of lightning anywhere in the world in Singapore. Funny enough, my mum and dad actually were walking behind someone through the banyan tree forest there and watched someone get struck by lightning. Nice. We insure a drone operation there that does ship to shore deliveries. So that is something that we consider. Now, it's not actually a major risk with drones, because generally the lightning wants to try and get to the ground. It's not going to try and hit one of the drones. But it's those kinds of things, depending on if we're looking at it in a specific scenario like that one, we might go into more detail. Then on a grander scale, we've got thousands of small commercial customers. We look at what kind of claims occur. Now, you have accidental damage, you have hard landings were really common in the beginning. So the drone would just come into land, a bit of gimbal damage, but that writes off the whole drone, because usually on the DJI drones, most of the value is in the gimbal.
Gimbal.
So the gimbal and the camera's damaged. That's going to be 250 quid of a 500 or 600 pound drone. Straight away, it puts out of action. Theft used to be quite big, but it's not as common now. And then things like being lost in water, because as soon as a drone touches water, it's completely destroyed. And it's looking at our claims data, how common are losses, what causes, what are common losses. So the confined spaces, the Helios 3 is becoming more common. So that's something that until now, we didn't see enough of a correlation to think that, maybe that should be more expensive. But there's a certain point where everybody, as a small commercial drone operator, is putting money into the pot. And generally, what we try to look at is what's the value of the equipment. And then there's obviously ground risk, and then there's the risk of it being in the air. But essentially what we're going to pay out on is if the drone gets destroyed or the equipment gets destroyed, it's the amount of money. So that's the main factor. And yeah, everyone's putting money into the pot depending on what you're doing. But generally, everyone's flying a drone to scan. They're either using cameras and like you guys, you're making video content, or you're using a scanner for thermal imagery or surveying or something like that. And so it's generally all sort of the same activities. It's only when somebody starts causing an issue that then maybe those premiums would go up a little bit. But essentially everyone's sharing risk, and that's the whole point of insurance.
Yeah. Before we move on, just touch on to that question that came up. What is the difference between the insurance that you normally traditionally have as opposed to this one here, DJ Care Refresh? So, I mean, for those who don't know, DJ, I mean, you know, but for someone who may be watching the show, with the DJI Refresh Care, when you buy the product from brand new, I think you have 3 weeks or whatever it is. That's it.
But don't you have 3 replacements?
So it depends on the year or 2 years. So
absolutely.
So DJI Care Refresh, when you buy a DJI drone, I think you have up to, it's essentially the first time you turn the drone on, it will ask you, and anyone that's bought a new DJI drone, it says, have you got DJI Care Refresh? And you can buy it there. And I think it's up to 2 weeks you have to purchase it.
I believe so.
DJI Care Refresh, first of all, they don't cover you for public liability. So that's the main thing. If you want to be flying commercially, you have to have a policy that covers you 48 hours. There we go. That's actually very quick afterwards. So 3 days for activation. So I thought it was longer than that. But yeah, so DJI Care Refresh, first of all, doesn't cover you for public liability. So if you're working commercially, it's not going to cover you to your legal aspects. So you can't use it for that. The good thing about DJI Care Refresh is that I've always heard very good claims experience from them. I've heard that people make a claim, it gets sent off to their central factory in Amsterdam, or their depot in Amsterdam, and then they get sent out. And I think I've heard people that have had 48-hour, turnaround to get their drone replaced. The thing is, it's not an insurance policy. I can't say too much, but anyone wants to look into DJI, have a quick Google about some of the issues they're having in the US, and that will explain why DJI Care Refresh is not an insurance policy. I'll watch my words carefully, but DJI is not an insurance policy. It's an extended warranty, and you only get 2. So that means that you've paid for, essentially, in a lot of cases, it can be, actually in every case, DJI Care Refresh is more expensive than insurance, except for the fact that you have the liability with other insurance. So if you go to if you come to us or any other competitors and you're buying the liability aspect, it will be more expensive than DJI Care Refresh. But part of my job is to go through competitors and DJI Care Refresh, for example, and I reverse engineer the pricing from their sites to try and calculate what they're charging. DJI Care Refresh is always going to be more expensive because the rate they charge is roughly 10%. So roughly 10% of your drone is what you're going to pay to cover it with DJI Care Refresh.
Yeah.
You only get 2 replacements for that. If you get the 2-year cover, I think you get 3 replacements. What happens if you have a 3rd or a 4th? I mean, an insurance policy would pay out on those. They might start to investigate a bit more if you've had 3 or 4 claims in a year, quite rightly, because unfortunately that could be a fraudulent person. And the more claims that get paid out, we know this, it will get shared around.
Can I just cut? I want to interject there because I've worked a lot in insurance, not as an insurance, but with insurances, whether it's through telecoms replacement, this sort of thing. When you've got someone who's got 2, 3, 4 losses, all right, within 12 months, now they're either a very poor operator, but to me, when I talk to a lot of underwriters in that sort of higher echelon of to them, that's their bunts money, because if someone signs up for a 4 loss in a year, what you're saying, because you pay extra money for it, but they hopefully will gain some reasonable profit out of that. But once you start getting someone going 3, 4 losses, you go, what the hell are you doing, mate? How are you doing this? Now it may well be
but there's actually, I mean, I admittedly crash my drone quite frequently. I don't know how common that is if I'm just an awful pilot.
Probably.
I've crashed my drone multiple times, but I would never make a claim for it. Yeah. That's just my personal attitude to insurance. Some people will have a very minor scratch on their drone, or something, and then they'll claim for it, even if it means, I mean, the excess, let's say, is £50, and let's say the claim value is 55. They'll make the claim for £55. Some people won't bother. So those 4 claims could just be scratch lens, scratch lens, scratch lens, £55, £55, £55.
Yeah.
And they just keep doing it, and they're paying the excess and only getting a £5 back off it. It does happen. You know, but then also some people will have a loss and they think, oh, I don't want to make a claim because the premium's going to double next year. That's also something that does happen. But at least in our case, we don't do that, because with our people have accidents, and generally what we see is if someone's had an accident in year 1, that isn't always repeated. They've, you know, learned a lesson, and they don't keep up with it. Most people,
but you can't operate. You said before, you've already mentioned this, is that you've got a pot of money, and there's no sort of DVLA that says 3 points, 6 points, 9 points. So you can't go and go, well, he's going from insurance to insurance to insurance. So
I mean, this is, for example, big surveying companies, right? So let's say there's a guy working for surveying company X, and they've got 5 pilots, and he makes a claim, but the claim's actually against the insurance, against the company that are surveyors. That guy then gets sacked because he was useless, and then he just goes to the next company who might already be insured with us, and now he's a pilot under their policy, or now suddenly they go and buy a policy for us. So he goes self-employed and buys a policy from us. We can do some measures, but for example, not everybody wants to put all their pilot information when they buy a policy. There is always that element when you're selling insurance, because essentially there's always different bits to any product. But for us to sell insurance, first of all, you want to make sure that you're getting paid out. Some people just want the cheapest policy possible so that they can go out and fly. Some people want an easy process, and that means the more questions we ask, we're potentially pushing people away. Yeah. So it's about trying to get a happy medium of sort of each point on the triangle.
I mean, there's a question here about age limit. I mean, Tony's going to hit 60 soon. So how long can Tony keep applying for insurance?
Well, Tony, what you say, you're in your 60s, so I think you've got a good few years left. Do you know? Interestingly, we've had quite when I'm not on the phones as much as anymore, unfortunately. I used to enjoy it a lot, but when I was first on the phones, a lot of ex-pilots that no longer could fly, their eyesight had deteriorated, so they couldn't fly traditional aviation anymore. And some of them have been, airline pilots. They were then getting drones just so they get up in the air. There's no eyesight test. You can buy a drone, you can put it up in the air. Yep. If it's a sub 250 drone, you can.
Maggie, Moo, that check is in the post. Also, an appointment for Specsavers.
But yeah, these things. For example, I'd put it to the community really. If we start asking those questions, some side of it is okay. Now everybody's happy. The insurance premiums come down because people might not be making claims. But what if we get it completely wrong? And actually, the eyesight of somebody doesn't need to be X for them to be able to fly the drone safely. We've got no claims data to prove it. It's not like when somebody makes a claim, we go, "Oh, what was your recent eye test?" Or, what are you, a 4 in this eye and a 2 on this one? How tall are you? Are you 5'6" or are you 6 foot? Oh, sorry, we don't insure people over 6 foot anymore.
That's Tony.
Shut up, John. If you start a conversation before you come over here, anybody that's over 5 foot nothing has got nothing. Anybody that's over 60 is getting nothing.
Sharing the truth. No. The point is also that there's this big thing about. I wouldn't say it's big, but people say, "Oh, part of the law is you have visual line of sight." Now I've got brilliant eyesight, has laser. Okay, my drone goes up. As soon as it goes more than 30, 40 meters, I can't see it. I got line of sight, but I'm like, what? So I got to look at my screen. So
line of sight is such a tricky one to try and gauge. And again, it comes down to when you're looking at a claim, there's almost no point asking the question of, was it line of sight? Because at some point you start spending so much more money on trying to track, on Google Images. Okay, well, if they were at this trajectory, they wouldn't have been able to see out because there was a shadow there and the cloud would have been in the way. It just becomes too much work to try and calculate things. And then people would have claims not paid out and they were innocent. It's always that thing of we would rather pay out on claims and make sure everyone's covered than to reject people that were making genuine claims. As soon as you do that, you failed as an insurance company, in my opinion.
Yes, boss.
I know you're in charge. Can I ask, you probably don't know the answer.
on it. That's the
yeah.
Two or three a month, I think, is probably the average, off the top of my head. I'd have to look into it. But the key thing is, I mean, a lot of people don't claim, but there's also that thing of, in the winter, there's less flights, but if you do fly, there's a slightly higher risk.
Yeah.
And then in the summer, people are flying a lot more, and then some happy accidents happen. You know, getting out, I haven't got it out for a while. Suddenly there's a gust of wind and something happens, you know.
Sorry, I got another question. So this might not have been your company; it might have been another company. So, Henley Regatta last year had a drone, and it was an official flight. They were doing stuff for the media, for everything, but the drone fell out and hit the person. Basically, hit a person on the ground. So they did. Does that person, say if that person wanted to claim, would they claim against him individually, or would they claim against his insurance, drone insurance?
So in this case, they would the pilot would make a claim for the incident, probably because I know this particular case. The drone would have been destroyed. So there's already a claim there. That's what comes under the accidental damage. And for example, if that pilot was under DJI Care Refresh, that element would come under the DJI Care Refresh bit. The other side of it is that it crashed into a boat. And as I understand, there was some paint damage, and then there's stuff afterwards. That then becomes a claim against the pilot, and then the pilot's third-party liability, he's then covered under insurance. And in that case, it would have been, you know, a legal battle with the owner of the boat. The boat was probably quite valuable, and that probably would have been quite a sizable claim. Fortunately, there's not that many third-party.
Yeah, because that was the only one I've ever known about in 4 years of me flying.
Exactly, it's the only large one I've heard of. Thankfully, in the UK, we've not had anyone hurt with the drone yet. I have heard about, I think it was in the US. I mean, obviously there was the recent one in Orlando in the US, the boy that got hit with the
that was recently,
on the UI.
Just to let you know, Luke, there is one.
So that was ongoing.
There is one at the moment ongoing in Somerset. When I spoke to you about the commercial cover for me and Tony doing the carnivals, the day before in Somerton, someone hit a child and a lady, but all injured, police involved. They've been charged. I don't know how it's gone from that, but I do know that there is one actually ongoing at the moment. And I guess if you're part of it, you can't comment at the moment for obvious reasons. We can't really speculate who, where, and why, and get involved with that. But so I do know there's one active at the moment, having spoken to the Somerset police.
Yeah, well, I think thankfully there's not people who have had serious injuries until now. There's been nobody, because there's always been that fear. The drone drops from a height and it lands on someone's head and they die from it. And in all honesty, we've always predicted that it would be probably 1 in 10 years that would happen. You know, we talked about how you rate insurance. That's part of it, is trying to look at what could happen in the worst case. And around £1 million claim for somebody dying would probably be 1 every 10 years. And if you think we're about 10 years into the industry now, it's potentially going to happen. But then there's things with like advancement of technology, we can maybe look at it again. But if we look at the next 20 years, what do we think? Okay, well, we expect it to happen at some point, unfortunately. The one in Somerset, I just hope that the person flying had third-party liability cover, because if they didn't, I'd hope that the mother and the kid would recover. But depending about the financial impact, that pilot could be completely desecrated for the rest of their life. They could be bankrupt. They could be paying, out legal liabilities for the rest of their life, which is the danger. That's the thing. I mean, when you buy, it's the same when you have your car insurance. You think first about, oh well, I'm paying when I was a learner driver when I was 17, it was £1,000 for the car insurance, and the car was worth £2,000, let's say. Yeah. And I was always complaining, and I worked in insurance since I was 18, and I was always complaining about it, thinking it was ridiculous. But what you're really paying for is that third-party liability. It's always such a large chunk, because out of 10,000 people, somebody is going to have that large claim, unfortunately. And you just hope it's not you, but that's why the money has to go in there.
Yeah, because this thing, none of us know what's around the blooming corner. You just never know.
Yeah. I think before we move on to another subject, I just want to cover a couple of things, and you may not want to answer these questions. You may want to, because they're to do with the competition to a certain degree. But there was a comment a minute ago, for example, a certain insurance company will give you a £25 a month, £5 million commercial cover. Now, I've looked into a couple of these before I spoke to you on the phone about, and when you do your research, it's not commercial. So I know Mickey Moo says read the small print. I just want to make sure that if people are quoting £25 a month for a commercial £5 million liability for a whole year for a drone.
I'm trying to do the maths in my head. It's because the thing is, if you're just getting liability cover, I don't know of any. It's
But why would you just get? I'm going to sound stupid here. I know the answer, but for today,
why would you just get liability cover?
For the listeners, why would you just get liability as opposed to insurance, or both?
Well, essentially, I think some people, it depends. Again, it depends on your attitude to risk. Admittedly, even though I work in insurance, I generally have quite a good attitude to risk. I quite enjoy risk. I'm riding my motorbike down. I'm not the sort of person that's going to be checking down. I'm not going to, before I get on the bike, I'm not checking, have I still got every spoke and every oil pressure right and all these different. I mean, I check the oil because it's leaking constantly. I'm not checking the tire pressure every time before I get on the bike. And the walk around. People have different attitudes to risk. Some people just want to have insurance so that they're covered legally. The problem is,
I feel peace of mind because I know I've got insurance.
Yeah, but it depends. Some people don't care about the peace of mind. They think, well, I'm flying safely. If it happens, it happens. But one thing I can comment on, actually, the liability only is, if you've got liability only cover, on the basis that liability claims are quite lumpy, so they occur once every few years, but then they're quite big. The majority of claims paid out are for the accidental damage. So if you're buying liability only, you're paying quite a lot for something that you're never going to get. It's a very, very small chance that you're actually going to
risk on that is.
So a lot of that money is just profit in the pockets of an insurance company that might pay out. But some of these guys, they might run a liability only policy. They pay out for one of them, realize that they're suddenly at a 50%, we call it a loss ratio. So they've paid out 50% of the claims, and then run away with the profit and decide they don't want to do it anymore. And what I would say to the community, look out for these, because if you see a new company pop up, put the wording through ChatGPT, have a look at competitors, put their wording through ChatGPT, and just see if you can highlight a few differences. But those companies that pop up every couple of years, we see them come along and then they're out of the market a year or two later because they get in as much money as they can, they undercut everyone, get the money in, they pay out on their first big claim, and then they decide they don't want to do it anymore and they walk away with the money. Other insurance companies, us, and there are other competitors that have stayed in the market for a while. It's about looking at the 10, 20-year picture to make sure that you've got enough money in the pot to consistently pay out and still be staying around for a long time. The liability only thing is a tricky one. What I would say is it doesn't need to be, sometimes we've had incidents where the battery swells, for example, in a drone.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't notice, the battery's old, they've put it up in the air, the battery doesn't quite clip into the DJI drone sometimes. It can pop out, drone's fallen down, and that drone might just land on the ground and be a loss for the drone, and it's a claim. But there is an age limit on drones they would cover. Tony, is there an age limit on drones they would cover? For us, no. For us at MoonRock, definitely not. We don't even ask age, because we do have people that I believe need to be over the age of 18 for the small commercial. I believe it's the same for the hobbyist.
I think he made as in the drone, no?
On the drone? And it's not on the drones we would cover.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's not like drones are old enough at this point. Drones are maximum 10 years old. We cover self-built drones as well. So if you think an old Phantom 1 compared to somebody that's built their own drone, how's the risk compared to those two? These brushless motors go for tens of thousands of hours without any issue. They've got such small moving parts. There's not many issues these drones are going to have. It's not like a car. It's not like traditional combustion. For example, a drone is also on the larger side, a fixed wing, long range aircraft with a traditional combustion engine. Now, that sort of thing, we would look at the age. But when it's electronic brushless motors, age doesn't play as much of a factor. Batteries definitely do. But it's also a case of, if we start, I think now we're getting to the point where we want to capture more data on the types of drones, because some drones do have higher risk than to others. But at least to this point, there hasn't been enough of a difference for it to be fair to the customers to charge a difference on each one. It's the laws of average with insurance. I don't know if anybody's an investor or if either of you guys are into investing at all, but there's the S&P 500. It's the largest 500 companies in the USA. If you want to get into investing, it's quite a good one to start with. You put your money into that, and it's split atop the top 500 companies in the USA. Or you can go a bit more risky and you can look at individual companies. Insurance is similar in the sense that we are not buying stocks in companies. We are taking on risk. So what do? Do we take on specific use cases, or do we try and go across the law of average? And that's kind of how it works. You have to find averages. And at the moment, the average is people flying a drone. There's not too much of a difference yet, unless we're then talking about swarm light displays, agriculture, and that's where it's starting to, take off in different directions.
Well, I'm conscious of time, and I have 3 specific questions I want you to answer, if you may. I think it's relevant to what we want to do moving forward. Of those 3 outstanding questions, one of them is, where is the market going? What are the trends? What are the things that we should be looking at? And those sort of things that you're involved with when you sit around the table going, what are we going to do next year, year 2, maybe? And it might well be you quarter to quarter, but I assume you do a bit more long term than that.
Yeah, well, a big one for us now is eVTOL. So
what, sorry?
eVTOL, so electronic vertical takeoff and landing. So it's flying taxis. If you've heard of Joby or Archer,
I've seen all that stuff.
Too big. I mean, they look like something out of Avatar. And if you go to the air shows, I think it will be Farnborough Air Show again next year. They'll be at the air show with big stands, and effectively, I mean, there's so many different configurations. There's a big race for which one's going to get into position. Archer, I think, have just got the exclusive rights to the UAE in 2026 to start operations. There's EHang in China. There's lots of videos you can look at this, and a lot of that is what we're looking at. So these much larger drones, and they're flying people around.
I'll be looking out for them, because I live in Reading, so we've got that drone corridor. I wonder will they come and test them there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other one. So then in the corridors, we've got deliveries. So we already insure a number of deliveries, but those small use cases where we want to be an enabler. So one of the main things that we try to focus on as an insurance company, and the reason we were founded was Simon, the founder, was actually working in construction. He had a number of properties, and somebody wanted to put a drone on the roof, and it was just a nightmare to get insurance. That's why he started the company, was to then be an enabler, so then people can go out and fly the drones. And it's the same thing. We work with the aviation authorities to try and say that, look, we're happy to cover this from a risk point of view. Why don't you open up these? And these small use cases for drone deliveries, for example, they should be eventually something that we see in everyday life. And for some people in some areas of the world, they are quite a common thing. So that's a big one. The swarm light displays is obviously a hugely growing area. We've gone from, a handful of customers over the last 6 to 7 years to now we have, not in the hundreds, but it's getting close to there now with the swarm displays, and they're becoming more and more advanced. Hopefully not too hampered by the recent incident in Orlando, but they have different advancements in there. They have the pyros coming off them and all kinds of things. And then agriculture is probably my favorite use case. Ever since watching a David Attenborough series on the future. So he was talking about how we've kind of basically destroyed the Earth for 4 episodes, and on the 5th one, he went into what the future is, and the very last scene is a drone flying over the Amazon with a parcel in it, and that's actually not agriculture, but I always think of that when it makes me smile, because there's the DJI Agras are growing quickly. There's the XAG drones. There's a few USA companies as well. And they do everything from cleaning solar panels, because one of the big things with solar panels is dust and sand get on them so frequently, so they're not economical to have. But if you can have these drones that go over and blow the dust and keep them clean, it's better for the environment. And then there's seeding, spraying. So in the UK, it's becoming more and more popular. So that's a massively growing area as well. And the drones are a completely different use case, because this isn't a drone going up for the use of a camera. This is a drone going up with spraying and seeding and even jet washers on them to clean the outsides of buildings. So it's quite an exciting new use of drones.
You watch some social media, you see some people putting the fire engine comes out and these 6 drones come out and put the fire. We're a bit away from that, but I want to make sure I get these 3 questions. My second question is that because of what we do on the Drone Show Live, we like to show new talent, newcomers to the industry. And we get a lot of people that maybe just join in asking questions about what I should and shouldn't do. What are your top sort of 5, 6, 7 recommendations you would give to anybody? All right. I just went out. I've just bought a DJI Mini 4. I want to get insurance. What are the sort of things what are the tick boxes that I need to check to make sure I've got some decent insurance? I appreciate you're not here to sell your product, but generalize it. What would you be looking at for?
So it's always a tricky one with insurance, because effectively you don't know until you make a claim what you've bought. In most cases, as I said, the first one that you should definitely do is have a think about what kind of things concern you. So are you worried about it being stolen? Are you worried you're going to be, if you're going to be covered on your holiday? Because there's different reasons people fly. Helder's off to the Philippines and flying. He wants to know, am I going to be covered there? And a quick read through the policy wording, there should be something called an IPID, which is, I should remember this off the top of my head, but it's a policy summary effectively. Have a quick look, think of your specific use cases of what you're going to be doing with the drone. What do you want to be covered for? And put it through things like ChatGPT and just check the wording and say, am I going to be covered for this? Generally, it's quite good. The next thing is really how available is the company? If you need to ask a question, are you getting good feedback? It's like any company. Are you getting a good service, a good response? Have a look on the website. Can you find, the claims information? Because it's so easy to go on and think you're getting a quote. You've bought the policy, but then when you come to make a claim, it's the number's nowhere to be found. It's at the bottom of some document somewhere, and they can get away with that. And these companies that pop up and then disappear 2 years later,
no contact.
It's not as easy to check.
09, £2 an hour.
Yeah. But something's not as easy to check. So, for example, we work with A-rated insurers. So Apollo and Hiscox and Beasley, they're all very well-established insurers. It's not as easy to check, but if you go through the wording, you should be able to see who the insurance is underwritten by.
Yeah.
Basically, who's putting up the money, who's going to pay out on the claims. And a quick Google of the rating will also tell you if they're not A-rated, if it's a C-rated insurance company, then maybe avoid it and go to a competitor. There's always that realm of what are you buying insurance for? Are you worried about just ticking a box because you're a commercial pilot and you need the EC 785 2004? Done, fine. Are you somebody that has differences in needs throughout the year? So quite often we'll have people that come along and they need to have, they fly for the council once a year, or they're flying at a particular fair and it's held in the grounds of Waverley Abbey, for example, and you need £10 million worth of public liability. Is that an easy thing to add on? It's thinking of your use case. And then also, what does the site look like? What's the, is it easy to use?
Yeah.
Are you getting good service? That's essentially what an insurance policy is. But the best thing to do, first of all, get a good carry case for your drone, because it's going to limit the issues that you're going to have on the ground. Take the battery out when it's not in the drone. Make sure it's decharged. It's not, you're not keeping it with charge in it. These kinds of things will make a difference. And we are trying to put a bit more out, at least, as I said, I promised I wouldn't sell MoonRock too much, but we're trying to launch what's called the Knowledge Hub. So putting out on our blogs a bit more information. And hopefully, I mean, if you're a hobbyist, try and interact with that. But then also you guys, you know, you're always talking about safety. Just listen to it, follow the guidelines, follow the manufacturer guidelines. And most, I don't want to say most insurance companies, us and at least a handful of competitors generally are good and will pay out in the claims. Don't assume that when you buy insurance, they're not going to pay out in the claim, or they're going to find every way to get away with it.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, if companies do that, report it to the Financial Ombudsman Service and follow through with those complaints, because that is something. This is another thing to look for. Is the company regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority? So we are at the bottom of the website. You should always have in the footer that they're regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. And sometimes the company might be regulated under another company. So we're regulated in our own right. If you make a complaint, we get in serious trouble, and our founder Simon can even go to prison. If in their wording at the bottom they're regulated under another entity, potentially a highlight that the service is not going to be as good as others.
That's good. No, I appreciate that. The final one of the top three that I want to answer from our viewers is that where do you see, because obviously, as you can imagine, the cost of living, price going up, for food going up, petrol going up. How do you see costs for insurance? Let's say if the insurance policy stays the same, residential, commercial, and so on, where do you see pricing going from now for the next sort of 2-3 years?
So generally, over the past 7 years, insurance premiums are coming down for drones. There's 2 reasons for this, or 3 reasons actually. The first is just generally the attitude to drones. I mean, when you first go to an insurer and they've all got grey hair and they've been sitting in their offices for years, underwriting, tables in offices, and then you talk to them about a drone, they get scared of it. But now people have seen what drones are, just that, oh, I'm not sure how comfortable I am about this. There's always an element of fear in it, in the premium. That's coming down. The second thing is the technology's improved so much. So we've gone from the early DJI drones maybe had, 90-degree sense and avoid on landing or above them. Now, even the basic DJI drones have 360 sense and avoid and really advanced sense and avoid. I mean, the Neo is, 170 pound. You launch it off your palm.
Yeah.
And there's some great YouTube videos of people running through the forest and it can avoid. And even if it does a tree, it's absolutely fine. So that's a huge difference in the amount of claims that happen, and that brings down the premiums as well. And the other thing is there's more people flying and there's more money going into the pot. And that's quite frankly the biggest thing, is there's more money going into the pot. And this is also why it's important to pick an insurance company that's established and been around for a long time, because there's money in the pot. So you're not trying to fill up a pot that hasn't, that's not ready. That a lot of these newer companies, if there's a big loss, they're either going to be out of business or they need to charge you for it. Companies that have been around for a long time, they've put away these large loss provisions and they've got the money there.
So they're taking money to one side. From your business model and who you are, what external factors or governing bodies or industries outside us and the community itself, what external individuals are like? Is there government putting pressure on you? Is the CIA is there any other people?
No, so actually it's almost the opposite. So we're more pushing the CIA to open up, BV loss channels, open up the for drone deliveries. That's something that we're really putting on the CAA to open things up more. And the CAA is doing it the best they can, but quite frankly, they haven't got that much money. The CAA doing all the work they can, but it's a big project and they're underfunded, to be honest. The other thing that we try to do as the insurance industry is to give guidance back into the communities. One big thing that might come along, and it is in the works, is mandatory liability insurance for hobbyists. So this is something that's already required in Germany, I believe. And we just talked about the case in Somerset. If that pilot hasn't got liability cover, at least one life is being destroyed, because either somebody's terribly injured, somebody's financially wrecked for the rest of their life. Having a mandatory insurance there will make a big difference. And also that mandatory insurance will not be at a particularly high premium. If you look at our hobbyist cover compared to our commercial cover, it's something that is affordable for everyone, and that's quite an important thing for hobbyists. It's about treating customers fairly. It should be affordable, and I mean, all insurance should be affordable. It should always be within the realms of cover. But yeah, I think that's probably in the horizon. The next couple of years, it will be out.
No, brilliant. Thank you for that. I mean, our timing here at the moment, I've just gone through the questions that have been raised here previously and also at the chat. What I will say to the individuals that are on here now, the idea for Luke being on here is not to sell his product services. He's not here as a salesman trying to bang the drum for MoonRock. But what we will do, once the video is finished here, I will put Luke's details within the information section. So if anybody wants to make contact to him, etc., please feel free to do so. All I would say is he's currently on a motorbike going through North Africa where it is at the moment. So you might not get your emails responding straight away, or you might want to speak to MoonRock direct.
I will be. And I mean, you guys have been very kind to me as an insurer today. But honestly, you guys have my details. One of the reasons I did this is to get honest feedback from real drone pilots, because as I said, it's not every day I get to be on the phone speaking to people anymore. And more it's dealing with manufacturers and software companies. So I'm getting much more into the detail from their side, but it's really good to get feedback from the community. So I'd love to hear the good and the bad. If you've got some grumble about, your insurance policy or something you don't like, my job is to try and make sure that we've got a policy that suits the needs of drone pilots. That's the whole point of us at MoonRock existing. We're not insurance minded. It's about trying to make sure that we've got something out there. So just send me over emails, give me a call. And as I said, I would almost prefer some negatives, some things some real problems for us to look at. I'm a brave man. Honestly, I'm up for it. So if you have anything to throw at me, please bring it.
All I can say to Luke is thank you for coming on board. I know it's been a long time in the making, but we managed it, and I found it very, very informative, useful. Yeah. I will put your details, contact information on the information section once we've finished the live itself. I know that you've been, where possible, popping into the live show on Wednesday. Please do, and make yourself aware. Yeah. Let people know that you're there and say hi. And I've made a note here as well that you're first on the newcomer video list when we do that, and I'm sure Tony will be
it now. It won't be the next one, because the next one is this week.
but
the first one after that, we will be pestering you, Luke. Look, where's your video?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, and have you edited it?
And whilst we've been live, I've had an idea about our website as well. And you've talked about an information hub. What I might do now on our Facebook, on our website, have a section where we have information hub, where we put our every Friday lives in there. Yeah. So it could be insurance, could be DJI, it could be YouTube. So therefore, so we might be looking at that part of it as well. But all I can say is thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, somebody came up with that idea the other day. We'll have a crash night, Tony. I was like,
I tell you what, I just want to shout someone out, because he's a guy that I've spoken to previously, and he's given me some good advice. Is Drone Wilder. He's a YouTuber, and he's quite knowledgeable about drones, and he's also got some good videos of actually crashing drones safely. But he's been a really great guy, so check out his channel as well.
No, brilliant. Tony, do you want to say goodbye?
Bye. Sorry, I don't know if we get to
normally a man of many words.
Yeah, look, I can't thank you enough. As John says, I know this is taking a while to organise, but John, thank you for organising this. Look, you're a star. This is brilliant. So was it? This is very because I thought not a lot of people would sit there and listen to insurance stuff. But you made it really interesting, and you answered the questions, which is awesome. I appreciate that.
I appreciate everyone actually hanging around for the full hour. I saw everyone coming in at the intro, and I thought, right, they're going to be out within 10 minutes, and it'll just be us hanging around.
But as we said before,
I know. But when we finish here, I share this everywhere.
So what normally happens on the Wednesday night, we'll have up to 60, 70 people watching the live. But then by the next morning, we'll have 400 views. So with this, what I will do is I'll put a special place on the website that they can view that. Plus, it'll be on all 5 channels as well to view. So it may well be that we had 30 viewers on a Friday. And most of our community will know to be here Wednesday, 8 o'clock, not every Friday. But what we'll see is a growth of views over time. No doubt you'll get a growth of emails of complaints and concerns.
I hope so. That's what I'm here for.
But yeah, I have no more questions unless you do, Tony.
No, I don't have any questions. This was your show tonight, not mine. I was just here as the button pusher and taking in all the knowledge. Look, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Don't go away because the intro will last a minute and a second. Thanks everybody for watching us. As John says, we'll put the links in as soon as the show finishes. And this show, I will share it everywhere. When I finish, I always share it on all the other groups and that. We shall see you all on Wednesday when it's Undiscovered Talent. Luke will be in a few weeks' time on Undiscovered Talent. John is still undiscovered.